Welcome to another exciting episode of Submission Radio. It's November 23rd. What a weekend of fights. Dennis Bermudez of Kasper Zalowski here with you for another episode of Submission Radio.
Absolutely. It's going to be another big episode. Metamoris 5, UFC Fight Night 57 in Austin, Texas. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of exciting fights, and we've got three big guests on this week. We've got none other than Urijah, the California Kid Faber. We've got Ricardo Lamas here to talk about his victory fresh off UFC 180. And of course, we've got none other than King Mo to talk a lot about Bellator 131, Tito Ortiz, and what exactly it means to want to Django Tito Ortiz. I'm very curious to find that out. It's going to be a big show, isn't it, Dennis?
Yeah, that's right. You know, the translation comes out, we find out what he means. And guys, if you watch one other Submission Radio video this week, why not make it the farewell party that we throw Kid Dale? There's beards, there's funny swords, guns, other exciting objects. There might be a cake. You guys have to check this out. We have an interview with him, talk about a whole bunch of stuff before he left Australia and moved to America. You know, it's one of my sort of favorite farewell parties. Well, this is the first farewell party that we've thrown, that we've recorded, but it's crazy. It's between two beards. If you guys have seen Zach Galifianakis' Between Two Ferns, you'll know what we're talking about. Yeah, it's just... Our production team has done an amazing job with this one, and it was a lot of fun making, wasn't it, Cass?
Yeah, it was tons of fun, and Kit Dale's a great bloke. We're going to be talking about his commentary at Metamoris 5 as well. As always, we can be found on Twitter, Submission AUS. Check us out on Facebook, Submission Radio AU. If you're watching on YouTube, big shout out, and of course, subscribe. Don't forget to like the video, but that's pretty much all the housekeeping we have time for. It's time for our first guest, isn't it, Dennis?
Coming off an amazing guillotine finish over Dennis Bermudez last weekend at UFC 180 Mexico, Ricardo Lamas is back on Submission Radio. Ricardo, welcome back on the show, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's an absolute pleasure. First of all, congratulations. Let's start off with your big victory last weekend against Dennis Bermudez, UFC 180. You know, how did it feel to win at the first ever event in Mexico? And what has the last week been like for you?
It's been pretty normal, you know. It's just back to regular life now. I'm glad to be home. Finally able to sleep in my own bed after a long training camp and, you know, being in Mexico for a week. So I just feel real fortunate to have had that experience fighting in Mexico on the first UFC card. And, you know, I couldn't ask for anything better.
And, you know, it really seemed like you enjoyed some of the aspects of fight week leading up to your fight, such as open workouts. It really looked like the UFC embedded you were having a really great time communicating with all your Mexican fans.
Yeah, you know, one thing I learned about, you know, the last year of my career, you know, I was stressing out a lot trying to get the title shot and all that, and I feel like I wasted a lot of time. And now I just want to have fun with what I'm doing. You know, I'm living my dream right now, and the last year I wasn't really having fun with it, so I want to change that, and, you know, that's why a little bit more of my personality is coming out now.
Absolutely. And Mexico's a pretty wild place. After the fight, did you get a chance to party or celebrate or anything like that, or was it straight back home for you afterwards?
Nothing too crazy. The UFC put together kind of a little after party in the hotel, so we were there for a little bit, but we ended up going down the street to get some tacos. I was more hungry than anything. So after that, we went back to the party for about another hour, and then, you know, I went back up to my room and packed and went to bed.
Now, Ricardo, prior to the fight with Dennis, you mentioned to us a couple of weeks ago that you faced better competition. Just wondering, how did it feel being in there with Dennis, and is there anything about him that surprised you in this fight?
You know, he's a real tough guy. I was prepared for a 3-round battle, but as soon as I saw that I had him hurt, I knew I had to finish it. He's definitely one of the best in the division, coming off a great win streak, and I'm sure he'll come back stronger.
And also, when we spoke to you 2 weeks ago, when we asked you what your go-to move was in the gym, you said it was the guillotine, and that's exactly how you beat Dennis. You know, how sweet was it to win with that move, and did you see the fight ending in that way leading up to the fight?
No, you know, I wanted to end the fight with a knockout. That's what I wanted to give the fans. But with a guy like Dennis, you know, I don't want to let him back in the fight. So when I had him hurt, I had to finish it. And yeah, you know, I said my favorite submission was the guillotine, and you guys saw it Saturday.
You know, Ricardo, watching the UFC embeddeds and the countdowns and everything leading into it, it kind of seems like you and Dennis sort of hit it off even during fight week. Looks like you guys had a pretty good relationship going into this fight, and you guys got along whenever you saw each other around Mexico. Would that be a correct statement that you guys got along pretty well?
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's not. I mean, I know he talks in his interviews and stuff like that, and that's what we're supposed to do to sell the fight and everything. But he's not like very disrespectful. Every time I saw him, he would come up to us, shake my hand, and we have to act like professional athletes out there. We have an obligation to be role models for people, and we have to be professional. And me and him were just very professional. We got in there and we tried to beat the shit out of each other, but outside of the cage, we're cordial.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that the fight is over, obviously it's all about what's next. Afterwards, you had a bit of back and forth over Twitter with Conor McGregor, and Conor basically joked about not sponsoring you because of the way you fought Aldo, and you basically zinged him with a reply. You said, "I'm so disappointed I can't be sponsored by a clothing line. It's the most absorbent toilet paper I've ever used." Now, you've said before that you don't want to become a trash talker and you want to stay respectful, and thus far you have been. Did you enjoy giving it to Conor though, and did it make you want to fight him anymore?
No, there's nothing that guy's gonna be able to say to me that's gonna get me riled up to the point where I'm like angry. And you know what I mean? I grew up in a house with 6 older brothers. I got picked on my entire life. If he wants to play this game, he's gonna lose, and he's gonna lose horribly.
Well, he has been talking a lot of trash about you at the UFC Time Is Now event yesterday. He was talking about you quite a bit. I think it's safe to say, you're definitely on his radar and he definitely wants to fight you next. What about you? Is McGregor someone that you'd like to fight next? Is he someone that you'd like to match up with next?
Of course, yeah. He's a big name in the sport right now, so I think the UFC is kind of protecting him, not giving him wrestlers, and if he wants to get to a title shot, I think he needs to fight a wrestler before doing that.
And in terms of matchup against Conor, what do you think are some of the things that you could take advantage of in his style?
I think the big difference would be my wrestling. All his flashy moves won't work when he's on his back getting punched in the face.
And I guess, you answered the question a little bit before, but I just want to touch on it again. You mentioned that you wouldn't let him get into your head going into a fight with him. It really seems like his opponents thus far have really let him get into their head. I guess it would be safe to say mentally going into this one, you'd be fine dealing with a guy like Conor McGregor.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, man, I've had a lot of practice at being made fun of and making fun of people back, and I've been doing that my whole life. So, if he wants to play that game, I'm fine with it.
And just obviously, just again, Ricardo, touching on like trash talking and things like that. Obviously, a big part of Conor's success has been because of his trash talk, and you're a really sort of classy, respectful guy. Is there any incentive for you to sort of become more of a talker if it led to, say, monetary rewards or a title shot or anything like that?
A talker as far as expressing who I want to fight, what I want from my career, yeah, but putting on a front and being blatantly disrespectful to other fighters isn't something that I'm really interested in. It's not who I am. If you come at me with disrespect, you're going to get it back. But as long as you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect.
Ricardo, you're pretty popular as of late. And that's another person that would like to fight you and, called you out in a respectful way was Chad Mendes, who, just recently faced Jose Aldo himself, called you out over Twitter, said that you two need to spend some time in the cage together. What do you think of that matchup? Is Chad someone else that you'd like to fight next?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Chad is at the top of the division also, and he'd be a great fight for me too.
And just again, stylistically, how do you think you match up with Chad, and what do you think will be some of your advantages over him?
I think we'd put on a great fight for the fans. Just kind of like with Bermudez, we have similar styles. We're both wrestlers, but we're also both good strikers. So I think it'd just be a really exciting fight for the fans to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just fought. I guess everybody wants to see you back in the octagon instantaneously because you put on such an amazing performance, but you just fought. Tell us, what are your plans now that you just fought? Obviously, we know you have the family, you have a girlfriend, you have stuff that you want to do. How long till we see you back in the octagon, in your opinion?
Well, I'm going to get back in the gym immediately. I don't want to fall out of shape. And whenever the UFC wants me in there, I want to enjoy the holidays with my family. I the past couple of years I haven't been able to enjoy the holidays because I've been fighting like, right in the middle or right at the end of the holidays. So I've been training a lot. So, after the holidays are done, I'd be ready to go in, sometime in the spring.
And also, Ricardo, I'm just curious because in terms of Dennis Bermudez, you just faced a short, stocky, strong wrestler with knockout power in Dennis Bermudez. Do you think any of your game plans for Dennis would carry over for Chad Mendes?
Yeah, a lot of my game plans are really the same. It's to fight like myself, to mix up my striking with my takedowns, and just be aggressive and control the tempo. So I go into every fight thinking the same way.
Absolutely, Ricardo. Now, we've got a thing here we like to do with you. It's called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round, where we throw a whole bunch of questions at you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. If you're ready, we'll shoot some questions at you.
I'm ready.
Okay, so while in Mexico, what was your favorite Mexican food to eat?
Tacos.
Now, Ricardo, if you could put the guillotine on anyone, who would it be?
Conor McGregor.
Name 3 foods you were excited to eat post-fight after your latest fight.
Ribs, beef brisket, and Chinese food.
Now that you fought in Mexico, what's another country that you'd like to fight in?
Anywhere in Latin America, South America. I'd love to fight in Cuba, but I don't see that happening in my lifetime.
Ricardo, I don't know if you watched one of the UFC Embedded episodes, but you're quite popular during one of the open weigh-ins. There were a few girls flocking around you, calling you hot. Just wondering, what was the thoughts from the girlfriend when she saw that one on the YouTube?
I don't think she's seen it, but thanks for pointing that out. I'm probably going to smack around now.
Now, Ricardo, what's a typical Lamas Christmas consist of?
Oh, man. Well, we have lechon, which is kind of a Cuban dish. It's like marinated roasted pork, white rice, black beans, a lot of food, and then opening presents.
Ricardo, last time you told us your go-to move was the guillotine in training. Can you tell us another move that's your go-to in training that we might see you finish a fight with next?
As far as submissions?
Yeah, let's go submissions.
The head and arm triangle.
Love it. And one more hypothetical. Let's say you do get matched up with Conor McGregor. What's the one scenario in your mind that you see yourself beating him by?
The ref pulling me off his unconscious body.
Well, there you go, guys. Ricardo Lamas coming off such an amazing win at UFC 180 Mexico. You can follow him on Twitter at Ricardo Lamas MMA. Ricardo, enjoy your Christmas and enjoy your time off. And it's exciting to see what happens next. We'll stay on top of it for sure.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey guys, this is Frank Edgar, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Our next guest is making his return at UFC 181 against Francisco Rivera. Ladies and gentlemen, Urijah Faber is on Submission Radio. Urijah, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Now, Urijah, last time we spoke, we were excited to watch you at UFC Japan. Unfortunately, you had to pull out of the fight due to an injury. How's the body feeling now?
Body feels good. There's always injuries that are happening as fighters. We basically fight each other and work out all day, so it's kind of hard to avoid them. The Japan fight was an existing injury from my last fight that wasn't all the way healed. So I'm all the way healed now. Feel great. Getting the weight down, which is always its own little battle, and getting ready to rumble, man. I'm excited.
I'm just curious, what was that injury?
It was a rib injury. I'm not exactly sure what it was because the ribs weren't broken. I thought they were broken, but the x-ray said they weren't. So there's something to have to do with the ribs, which are a really weird injury because you never really know until it stops hurting that it's healed.
Yeah, the ribs can be an annoying thing. And you're right. I mean, Dana White's really spoken about this, and a lot of people have been speaking about this year. Injuries have really become a problem for the UFC and MMA in general. Do you think about this kind of stuff when you train now? Have you modified your training at all? Or do you still train the same as you were training, let's say, 5 or 6 years ago?
I train a little bit different. It's always listening to your body is super important. So I've always done that. Being a little bit older, also, you have to train a little bit smarter because, injuries are one thing, but, being hurt is another thing. So, there's a big difference between just being hurt and being injured. And, you're hurt all the time, but, injuries are something that you really need to take attention to and rest for and things like that. So I think it's probably a little bit less intense, but I feel like those years of super intensity were really needed in order to get up to a certain level, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just while we're on the topic of injuries, I saw an article. Could have been a few weeks ago, basically saying that Team Alpha Male has, I think, one of the best statistics as far as in terms of fighters not being injured and fighters actually making it to the fights. I think there was only like 2 in the last few years, I would say. Do you think that there's anything different that you guys do at Team Alpha Male compared to maybe other camps that maybe lessens the risk of injuries?
I think probably the fact that we're real respectful of each other and mesh well together helps out, because you understand your training partners. You're not, you don't have anything to prove out there as far as putting out too much effort and laying off the guys who are injured. We just really take care of each other, and I think that's important.
Speaking of training, Martin Kampman was on our show a few weeks back. I'm just wondering, how's everything working out with Martin? I know he moved to Sacramento recently and really became a part of the team. How's everything going there?
It's been great. Martin, he's got a ton of knowledge, and he's been running our pro practices, which all the guys have been loving. He's a lot more soft-spoken guy than Dwayne was, but he really cares about the team and is enjoying being a part of the team. He's a great guy, so it's a great combination.
Absolutely. Now, just like in your last fight, Urijah, you are the overwhelming favorite going into the fight against Francisco Rivera. What would you say are some of Rivera's strengths and things that you have to watch out for?
Well, there's no secret he's a heavy hitter, so I'll be aware of that for sure. But a lot of the guys here on this level are heavy hitters. Michael,
McDonald.
We've got Michael McDonald and Eddie Wineland and Brian Bowles and, on and on and on are guys that are heavy hitters. I think, Francisco is a guy that is a very good stand-up guy. He's pretty good at everything else. I think if it were up to him, he'd like to have just a nasty knockdown, drag out, and flip the coin on who gets rocked. But I think the difference is going to be my creativity a little bit. And, I think that's why, I'm going to be the favorite here. As far as the favorite goes, that's people's knowledge of who's fighting a lot of times. So he doesn't have as big of a name as I do. I'm always the guy that has everything to lose in these fights, and I'm okay with that. The guy's earned everything that he's gotten in this world, and so I respect him as a fighter. I respect his skills, but I plan on beating him.
And you really hit the nail on the head where a lot of fans don't exactly know who he is, but he's a very, very good and talented fighter. He is coming off a loss at the moment, and you're one of the biggest stars in the UFC, let alone in the division. I was just wondering, when you found out you were fighting Francisco Rivera, were you a little bit confused with the matchup? And also, you are one of the biggest stars. Sometimes your fans wonder, why doesn't the UFC match up with someone who's a bit better known and coming off a better record in the division?
Yeah, but then you ask, who? That's the question. I've fought most of the guys in the top 10, and so it's kind of a weird gig where people are questioning who I should fight, but I've fought almost everybody in the division, more so than guys like Cruz, who's probably up for the belt next with TJ, and so I it always comes down to a scheduling thing and who they have. And the bottom line is everybody in this division is tough, whether you're ranked in the top 11 or 12 or 13, or you're ranked number 1. I mean, it's a competitive go every time. So, I haven't really put too much thought into that kind of stuff, but I'm just happy to have a very game opponent, somebody that's going to bring a element of danger, because I feel like I need that when I go into a fight. Somebody that poses a real threat. I feel like Francisco is the guy that does that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be a great matchup. You just mentioned Cruz. A lot of people thought that before Cruz fights for the title, it would make sense for him to fight you first. It would make a really great story. Was that at all an option before you got booked in against Francisco?
Not that I heard of, and people always ask me, like, how come, I did an interview yesterday where they asked, how come I took this fight? How come I did this? I'm like, I've never said I'm not going to take a fight or, prepared to, like, back out of a fight. So I just take the fight that they tell me. And they never said anything about that. So of course I'd like to put my hands on Cruz, but for TJ, big fights for him. This is a big fight for him as well, and he's the current champion, and I feel like that's a fight that's going to happen for me. Win, lose, or draw against TJ, I think Cruz and I will have another go at it.
Oh, absolutely. You would definitely think so. I just want to also get your thoughts, on Cruz's return. He did beat Mizugaki rather handily. And also after the fight, he had some things to say about Team Alpha Male, had a bit of trash talk. I was just wondering if that sort of, gave you that itch to maybe, finish that trilogy a little bit quicker.
That guy's childish, man. I don't really care about what he says or what he thinks. I'm not trying to get in a battle of wits with an unarmed man. I'm focusing on my stuff. I've got a lot of things going on in my life, especially this fight coming up, and Dominic Cruz is just a peon in my book. No matter how good of a fight you put on, the guy's still a dope.
Yep, absolutely. Now, a question we want to ask you, Uriah, is, a point not too long ago, around the time of your first Hand and Brow fight, where you mentioned things along the lines of not being motivated and losing the fire. I'm just wondering, at this point of your career, where you've basically been every guy, like you mentioned, who hasn't been a champion, what's your motivation like now? And, what makes you continue to fight? Obviously, you're an amazing fighter, but what really makes you continue to fight?
I love the lifestyle, and I love going out there and performing. I love to test myself. But the biggest thing, I think, is I don't ever want to have any regrets. I'm a young 35 right now. I feel incredible. I live a really healthy lifestyle. And there's going to be a time where I'm sitting back and wishing I was 35 again, And you get that with guys that, I wish I was in high school again. I wish I was in college again. I wish I was this. You always wishing you could go back if you didn't do the things that you wanted to and do them. And I don't want to have any of those regrets. So when I'm able-bodied and I'm at the top of my game like I am now, it only makes sense for me to continue this journey. And I don't want to look back ever and be like, man, why did I stop then? Or what? I had more in the tank. I don't want to have those regrets. So that's why I'm in this still.
Yeah, well, you just blew our minds. You're right. We're looking at your life compared to our lives, and we're like, damn, we're probably gonna have some regrets in the future. Probably gonna have a really harsh midlife crisis.
It'll be about 3 or 4 lifetimes for us to live what you've lived through. So you've done pretty well so far.
I was gonna ask.
Well, you guys change that up starting today.
Yeah, we got some work to do. I was going to say, you're right. In terms of you and TJ, everybody knows your thoughts on that. So let's take him out of the equation. But let's say you keep winning fights, you keep building up this streak, and do you see yourself fighting for the title again at some point in your career? TJ being champ regardless or not, just at some point.
Yeah, of course. That's why I'm in the sport, and my skill level has continued to increase throughout the years. My body feels incredible. So, I'm always going out there to have my best performance. And I believe that my best performance can make me the best in the world. So that's why another reason I'm in the sport. And of course, that's always the goal, and who knows how things will pan out and what happens. I don't necessarily have any regrets or any anything that I feel like is stopping me from feeling great about myself. So I'm going to continue to live the life that makes me happy and keep pushing myself and let the chips lie where they may.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great attitude to have. And I was just going to say, looking at the division, looking at the top guys, obviously TJ's the champ, and you've said in the past that a fight against Rafael Assunção, doesn't really excite you. So other than those two guys, who are some other fighters in the bantamweight division that you would be excited to face in the future?
Man, I haven't really given it much thought. There's a lot of guys. There's the Brow fight still. There's the Cruz fight still. There's all the up and coming guys. I mean, there's a lot of talented folks in there. I do have a real itch to do the fights that the folks want to see, and fighting guys that aren't known very well just makes the case for having an exciting fight, regardless of who's involved, more of a case. So I just want to go out there and beat whoever they have in front of me. I'm looking forward to a bunch of good matchups in the future, and I want to make sure that I make a statement with this one.
Absolutely. And, one of the matchups that people always, sort of want to see, a rematch, if you may, is obviously with Jose Aldo, who you fought in 2010. I'm just wondering, the guy really seems like a puzzle. Chad had an amazing fight against him. And I know he's not in the weight class that you're in now, but do you see yourself ever matching up with him if the chance presents itself and having another go at him because he's such a legend?
I haven't thought much about that. It's not like a fight that I've been dreaming about. That was probably the most painful fight I've ever been involved in. He basically battered my leg for a period of time. So that's not a fight that I'm looking for. Now, would I have a hard time turning down a title fight at any weight? The answer is yes on that one. So, if I can somehow position myself for another title shot at any division, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, your fellow teammate TJ Dillashaw said quite recently that he really wants to face Jose Aldo. What are your thoughts on TJ possibly fighting Aldo, especially after, I believe he's only just had one title defense?
Part of the reason why TJ is so great is he really believes in himself, and he's an amazing athlete. So, we'd have to really ask Barao how he matches up with Aldo. I imagine that they're sparring partners and they work together, and it's got to be it can't be that one-sided. I think TJ has a great style for Jose Aldo. He likes to kick a lot as well, and he's got good wrestling. I think the size is maybe the only thing against TJ in the favor of Aldo, but TJ definitely be fast. So I never count TJ out, that's for sure.
Dennis, just before we do the tap out round, I've actually got one more. I'm just going to sneak it in. You're right. Just like last fight, I believe you'll be fighting on the prelims. You told us last time that you didn't really have any issues with that. For those who may not understand where you're coming from, tell us what it is about fighting on the prelims that makes you believe that, you'll be reaching a bigger audience.
Yeah, some people may not understand, but those who do. I actually requested both last time and this time to be in that position. It's the main event on the free card, the Fox Sports 1 card, which I think got last fight 3 times the viewership that the pay-per-view got. Aside from being kind of the focus on the main card, you're in front of a lot more people, and for me, it doesn't change my pay whether I'm on a pay-per-view or not. I can also help the pay-per-view buys by having an exciting fight and drawing people to get pitched on buying the pay-per-view. But the cheap guy that's at home watching, the guy that's in a bar and just happens to look up, the guy that doesn't have the cash to make it happen will all be able to catch my fight. And the businesses that I wear on my clothing, my sponsors, are all businesses that I own. And having more people watch my fight and understand who I am and get to know the brand of Urijah Faber, and the more publicity I can get from my companies, the better for me. So that's how I made my name in this sport, was fighting on the Versus channel with the WEC, and I love Fox Sports 1. So, so those who don't understand, now you have it.
And, just before we wrap this up with the submission radio tab round, I was going to say, last time you mentioned you have to start your preparation on the day a little bit earlier to adjust your body clock. Just wondering, how did you feel in your last fight in that regard?
I felt good, and it allows me to watch and relax for the rest of the fight, so that's pretty cool too. I actually like it all the way around.
Awesome. Now, Urijah, before we let you go, we'll quickly do the submission radio tap-out round. I'm sure you know the deal by now. Throw a bunch of fun questions at you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. You ready?
Yes.
All right, NBA season just began. Give us your prediction on how Sacramento Kings will be going this season.
The Kings are going to win the whole thing.
Nice. Now, when will we see full contact skydiving again, Urijah?
Oh, man. Hopefully we inspired some people and we'll see it soon. But as far as me getting involved, that would be never.
Now, Urijah, what's a must-have snack for Team Alpha Male?
A must-have snack?
Yeah, something that everybody always wants to eat.
Well, I would say everybody has coconut water. That's pretty standard.
Good old coconut water. Now, if you could choose one person to coach you in MMA or wrestling or anything for one day, alive or dead, who would it be? Who would you choose?
It'd be pretty cool to have Bruce Lee, just not necessarily the techniques that he brings to the table, but he seems like a real inspiring guy, and I'd like to kind of hear his theory. So that'd be cool to get a little different look from a guy that's so legendary without even ever really having any fights. So Bruce Lee would be cool.
Absolutely. Now, Urijah, what was your favorite childhood TV show?
It was Cheers, and
Nice.
that was it was almost like part of my upbringing. I loved Cheers, and Sam and Norm and Woody and everybody there. Everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's set in a bar in Boston, but that was my show.
Yeah, Team Alpha Male needs to open a bar and recreate that. Now, Urijah, are you a popcorn at the cinema or a sneaking outside food kind of guy?
Man, I'm a huge popcorn fan. I make probably some of the best popcorn on the planet, popped on the stove in olive oil, put with some butter and some brewer's yeast and a little veggie spice. And if I have the time, I'd love to sneak in my popcorn. But if I can't do that, I will settle for the movie popcorn.
I find it hilarious that most people sneak in other stuff into the cinemas, and you're sneaking a popcorn that's basically there anyway. That's hilarious.
we just went to the movies the other day and we snuck in popcorn. So there you have it.
You renegades. Urijah, what's the strangest place you've ever been recognized?
The strangest place I've ever been recognized. Holy crap. I guess it would be, trying to think of the strangest place I've been all across the world. I guess it would be probably in Italy, because no one really knew me in Italy.
Yeah.
And, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, it's pretty well known there, and in Japan and in Australia and, the Philippines, it's huge. So in Italy, there wasn't many people that knew who I was. And so getting discovered or being seen in the streets of Italy where no one spoke the language or gave a crap about MMA was pretty cool.
Mm.
Now, the last time Joseph Benavidez came on our show, he spoke about his domination on the street ball court. I'm just wondering, do you hold any wins over Joseph in the basketball record books?
In basketball, no, I haven't. I do. I think I have some victories over him in volleyball, though.
Ooh.
I had a team with me, but Joseph prides himself on volleyball, so I think that's pretty impressive.
Volleyball, basketball, man, you guys really live the life down there at Team Alpha Male. Me and Dennis are jealous. I was going to ask you, Ryan, has Martin Campman tried to hustle you boys in a poker game yet?
I think TJ went and played some poker with Campman, and I know he plays these little tournaments. I have yet to get any money taken by Campman from the poker world, but I have confidence in myself. I'm a lucky dude, and I understand the game enough, and I think I might just throw him off with being a little bit crazy.
That's how he gets you. And now, finally, Uriah, how do you see yourself winning against Francisco Rivera at UFC 181?
I'm pretty close to the all-time submission record, so I'd like to get a submission. That'd be pretty cool. But I'll take it however I can get it. If I can knock him down or, beat him up to a decision, whatever it be. But a submission would be cool.
Absolutely, and I think everyone would love to see that. Uriah, thank you so much for coming on the show again. Guys, you can follow him on Twitter at Urijah Faber. Twitter at Urijah Faber. Uriah, good luck in your fight, and thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
What's up, guys? It's Joseph Benavidez, UFC Flyweight, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, and next guest on the show is coming off a very dominant win at Bellator 131. He is none other than King Mo, and he's back on Submission Radio. King Mo, welcome back. How are you?
Man, I'm good, man. Just at the crib chilling, man. Head to the crib right now. Just at the gym.
Ah, okay, nice. The second crib. Now, it's great to have you back on the show. Let's chat about your recent performance. You beat Joe Vapito last weekend at Bellator 131. We're about 1 week removed. How are you feeling, and how happy were you with that performance?
I feel good, the performance was all right. I could have done more. I could have been better, a bit more efficient, but, man, Joe he's a resilient, tough guy. Just wild and just a tough guy, man. I had to grind him out, and he took a lot of shots, but he was still there. He wasn't going nowhere, man. He made me work.
Absolutely. And, you had a few opponents pulling out of the fights, getting injured and stuff. Was that difficult going into Bellator 131, not really being sure who you're fighting and people coming in and out?
It was tough, but I was used to it because it happened to me the fight before.
Yeah. I was gonna say Tom DeBlas. It's like the guy that for some reason the universe or whatever does not seem for you to want to fight him. It's twice now that he's had to pull out. Do you feel like you'll ever fight Tom DeBlas? And more importantly, are you still interested in fighting him?
I don't know. He's had bad luck. You say that, but as far as I'm down to fight whoever. I think Tom DeBlas he said he might retire from fighting and just focus on jiu-jitsu, but I wouldn't mind fighting him, but I think that ship to sail.
Absolutely. Now, Mo, the ratings came in for Bellator 131, and I'm pretty sure that you've seen that the fact that it was a huge success. It's one of the most watched or the most MMA watched fights on cable this year. Tell us, how impressed were you when you saw those results, and what did you think of the event and how it was put together? What did you think of Bellator 131?
I was impressed with the numbers. I'm excited to see what the future has to offer. The presentation was amazing. The walkouts, the fights, the lighting, everything, the stars in the crowd. It was amazing, man. And I had a great time. It was almost like a pro wrestling. I don't know, like pro wrestling, but kind of bigger than life, a big event. It was more than a fight, but like a big event. You know what I'm saying? That's what I liked about it.
Absolutely. I mean, being, wrestling fans for a long amount of years, we completely understand where you're coming from. And in the lead up to that fight, you seem very relaxed. You seem like you were having a good time in Dave and Buster's. In terms of where Scott Coker has taken the company, do you feel like, obviously it's a positive direction, and the fact that soon you guys might be a very viable rival to the UFC?
I like the direction it's going. As far as rivalries, Bellator, we're not worried about no rivalries. We just worry about doing what we got to do to entertain the people and entertain the fans and get people watching us. Everyone wants to go make it the UFC versus everybody. No, the UFC is their thing. Bellator is their thing. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, that's the case. I guess NBA and NFL got a big rivalry. No. NFL is their thing. NBA does their thing. It's just people want to make a rivalry about nothing. You know what I'm saying? We just want to need more options of places for people to fight at. That's it. If everyone's trying to get to one place, that means that place can control what's going on. In MMA is not a true sport like football and basketball. With football and basketball, even rugby and all other sports, they have feeder programs, so where they weed out the weak. So eventually they get to the best get to the top league. The UFC, they can sign whoever they want. They can sign a guy, and even Bellator. In MMA, any organization can sign anybody they want for hype. I can get a bum, let them fight crocodiles, lizards, and snakes, and then put it on YouTube. Have them fight 5 MMA fights, have them win against 5 bums, and guess what? He'll have hype off the YouTube videos, his Instagram, and then next you know, he might get signed by a big organization. Off of hype. If in football, rugby, soccer, basketball, baseball, hype doesn't mean nothing. What happens is your results, your numbers, your stats, performance. What means something. In MMA spot, performance and spot hype. How you win. How you win is what matters. Matters where you go. In real sports, if you just win, it can be 1-point victory every time. As long as you're winning, that's all that matters.
Absolutely. Very well said, King Mo. Now, I was wondering, you and Tito, you guys have been talking back and forth on Twitter, but before we talk about Tito, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the main event from Bellator 131. What did you think of the build-up between Tito and Bonnar, and what did you think of the fight itself?
I thought the build was good. The fight was all right. Bonnar brought it. Bonnar's the one that brought it. Tito tried it too, but come on, man. I'm impressed with Bonnar because for someone that ain't fought in 2 years and you start training again, it's impressive because he went out there and went 3 hard rounds. You know what I'm saying? Even still to Tito's takedowns, he has no wrestling background. Mm-hmm. Now, for Tito, I don't know. No, not to me, whatever. He won't fight me, so I won't talk about it because I know he ain't gonna fight me. He's just trying to find every reason. Well, you lost to quit. We all saw it. Okay, you saw what? We all saw him asking for a rematch because he knows he lost. Come on. For him to say that he thinks I lost to Quentin, then I might as well think that, hey, I guess he thinks that he lost to Forrest Griffin too then. Because he was awfully mad both times he fought Forrest. You know what I'm saying? So come on. For him to actually tell me he thinks I lost to Quentin, I guess he thinks he lost to fucking Forrest too.
Yeah. I was going to say, during the post-fight presser, you mentioned, you had an interesting line. You said that you would straight Django Tito. And we've seen the movie, we loved it. It was a long movie, however, and a lot of things happened. What exactly did you mean when you said that you were going to Django him?
Well, fuck him up. Remember that one part? There's a few parts. Remember the part where Django's looking for his girl, and the dude was getting whipped, and he walked up and was like, hey, y'all want to see something? And goes up there and starts beating him up and shoots him. You know what I'm talking about? The slave guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that part, Django, and then the other part when at the end when he shoots Steven in the kneecaps.
Yeah.
And he kills everybody in the house.
Yeah.
Django. You know what I'm saying? You go out there, you clear everything. You know what I'm saying? You take care of everybody. And that's what I would do with him. I was like, man, I would destroy you. It'd be easy work. You know what I'm saying? He knows he don't want to fight me. He knows. What's he going to do? Out-wrestle me? What? Out-strike me? What? Out-speed me? Wait, he's not stronger than me. He's big. He's not stronger than me. I'd muscle around everything. I control him. I would smash him. Hulk smash. That's what would happen.
Now, you mentioned that you don't think the fight's going to happen. And for fans at home who don't know how it works, just explain to us, what really goes into, making a fight happen. Is it something that you and Scott Coe can have a chat about? Or is it something that's entirely in Tito's hands because, he's got one of the upper positions, I suppose, in the company and one of the bigger contracts with him?
Okay, here's what's going to happen, right? It's easy. Coker, but the fans want Mo versus Tito. Okay, well, that sounds good. A lot of meetings. What do you got to think about Mo versus Tito? Oh, it'd be great. Do good numbers. Okay. I'm going to call Mo. Mo, you want to fight? Yeah, I want to fight. Tito, you want to fight? No. That's what will happen. And that's why it won't happen.
Wow. I'm curious, what is it that makes you want to fight Tito? Like, of all the guys in Bellator, what is it about him that makes you want to fight him?
No, I really don't want to fight him that much, but the thing is, I only care to fight him because I know it doesn't mean nothing to me beating him. But here's the thing. The dude was running his mouth posting dumb pictures of me versus Quentin. Me versus Quentin, too. We had 2 gorillas on the stage talking about Mo versus Quentin. And then he was talking about how my back saying, well, fighting Mo does it for me, he lost to Quentin, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but when I see him, he'd be like shaking my hand and trying to be smiling in my face. If you don't like me, don't like me. Just keep it real. You know what I'm saying? If I don't like you, I'm not going to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's fake. He's fake. Keep it real. Don't be slick side hater. You know what I'm saying? Don't be slick with it. Be real.
Absolutely. There's a lot of criticism for Tito right now in the fact that people think that he is picking and choosing his matchups. He's had a couple of, not the most difficult matchups in Bellator so far. Do you think that that might be the case for his whole run in Bellator if he doesn't take this fight with you?
I don't know what it is. I really don't care because I know he won't fight me. I hope he wins. I don't care. Win. You pick the fights you can win. I don't blame him. But I know he won't fight me. He ain't stupid. he knows better. He ain't stupid. Come on. Tito. Come on. It's like this. Tito dyes his hair blonde to be likable or something. He does something to be likable. That's what. Something he dyes his hair blonde. He's a Tito Ortiz. I've never seen a Mexican guy with blonde hair. I've seen Spanish, but never seen a Mexican with blonde hair. So I think he tries to play both sides. He's Tito Ortiz. He's blonde hair, bitch, a nice guy, Hail American. He carries the American flag and the Mexican flag. It's great. So he's trying to get both sides. He tries to play nice guy, but he's really not nice. So he's fake. So to me, everything about him is bogus. You know what I'm saying? Everything about him is bogus.
I was going to ask you, if obviously Tito doesn't take the fight and this fight doesn't materialize, who would be someone else that you'd want to fight, if not Tito?
I don't care. Whoever Coker has before me, I don't care. Yeah, I really don't care. I'm a fighter. All I do is fight whoever they say. So that's what I do.
Now, Mo, news broke recently. The TNA lost their Spike TV deal and they'll be moving to a new network. I was just wondering, what did you think when you heard of the news? And what does this mean for your relationship with TNA? I know that you had that contract where you could wrestle for them while they're on Spike. Is that all done now that they're moving to a different network?
I have no idea. I hope not. I'm always a TNA supporter to the end. But we'll see. I don't know yet, but we'll see.
I wanted to, talk just back on your MMA career, Mo. You've had two very dominant wins in the last two fights. We know that you train at American Top Team. Is there anything new or specific that you've been working on that's been a contributing factor to those dominant performances?
No, I think my body's coming back. That's the thing. My body's slowly coming back. When I first saw Bellator, before my first fight that year before I signed, I had 3 ACL surgeries. One to put it in the ACL, the other one to take the ACL out because it's infected, and the third one to put a new ACL back in. So wow. I had to deal with that, and then I had the staph infection. So my body was like, it was a long recovery, and now my body's starting to feel better. So slowly moving around, slowly come back around, but it's feeling better. So I'm getting the pep in my step. My shot looks better. I'm not flat-footed because before when I first came out, I was flat-footed because of my knee. Now I got more, muscle and more bounce in myself, so I'm feeling better.
And you were talking about how your body was feeling. If things go to plan and you do get matched up, soon, how soon do you think you could be back in the ring fighting again?
I want my fight in February, something like that. Late January. I don't know. I don't care. Just if you need a matchup, I'll be ready. Give me a fight, I'll be ready.
Absolutely. I was going to say, just quickly in terms of, your next fight, I was going to say the one thing about if you fought Tito would be that it'd be a step up in competition. Your last opponents, though, they were really tough guys, but they seemed like maybe they weren't quite on your level. Do you think you'd agree with that?
Well, it seemed like Justin Jacoby was a kickboxer. He's fighting glory, and people were like, most can wrestle. I wrestle, but I beat him standing. This other guy's a tough guy, he's a tough guy. It wasn't my fault that my original opponent got hurt, but that was the replacement. But Tito, to me, he get the same treatment. I would beat him just probably easier than those guys because with Tito, I know what to expect. With other guys, I didn't know what to expect because it was short notice. I had 2 weeks for one, and then 1 week for the other, or 3 weeks for one, 2 or 1.5 weeks for the other. So.
Absolutely. So in a lot of ways, is that a bit more difficult because you're fighting these really tough guys, but they're not necessarily household names. And, you are putting a lot on the line when you fight these guys. Is that a little bit difficult for you in that regard?
No. A fight's a fight. So you can fight Godzilla. You fight Hulk Hogan. You fighting a lizard or a squirrel. You fighting a butterfly. It don't matter. A fight's a fight. So somebody's getting the ass whooped.
I would definitely fight a butterfly over Hulk Hogan any day.
Now, Mo, we're going to do something with you that we always do with our guests. It's called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round. We're going to throw a bunch of fun questions at you. Before we do, we've got a couple of fan questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Now, Holler wants to know, you mentioned recently that you weighed in against Jacoby and that you might give 185 a try in 2015. Do you still have plans for that? And if so, how far do you think you'd be from a shot at Halsey?
I don't know. It's based on how I look. I don't know. It's got everything's an option. 185, 205 heavyweight. I just want to get paid and fight and have fun. That's my main thing.
And we've got another question. King Mo fan 33 would like to know, how does King Mo spend his Christmas? Now, this is a bit of a different question. What do you have planned for the Christmas season, Mo?
Most likely I'll be training or something like that. I'll play with my daughters. My daughter, see my daughter or playing. I don't know, do something or spend time with the family. I don't know yet. Maybe go to Dallas, meet my people, my family, and my friends. Stay in Florida and train some. I'm not sure yet, but I'm gonna figure something out.
Now, King Mo, we'll jump to the submission radio tap out round. We're going to throw a bunch of fun questions at you and basically answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Yep.
Now, we like finding out what music you're always listening to every time you come on the show. Who's someone that you can recommend to us for all the Aussies off your iPod?
Well, it depends on what you listen to, because I listen to like all sorts of rap, saying from the South. So you tell me what you're listening to, because right now I'm listening to Kane Music Mafia, Italy Banks, Fox a Million, Racked Up Ready, my boy Fat Pimp, DCC, Beat King. Because Beat King's a comedian rapper. Like recently there's if you look on YouTube and type in "I'm not gay no more," there's a guy that came out and said, "I I'm not gay no more. I'm delivered." You know what I'm saying? Like he made a song about that.
Yeah.
Then he made a song. It was a white gangster called. If you type in "white gangster G Real," this white dude from the hood was like, I'm real, you know what I'm saying? He's saying the N word, like I'm gonna keep it G real and this and that. So he used what the guy was saying, and he made that to a song.
Oh,
so
wow.
His name's Beat King. He's pretty funny.
That's hilarious. Love to check him out.
Now, Mo, what has been your favorite fight in Bellator thus far?
I don't know yet. The fastest one, I guess, except for the Zoe, I guess. I don't know. Just like to me, it's they all blur together, but to me, all fights are fun. They're like even the ones I've lost, they're fun because I'm doing what I enjoy to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing what I enjoy in life. I'm getting paid to do it. So to me, it's always fun. Even training.
That's always oh wow. Most people hate training. I was gonna say, will we ever see King Mo in a pro boxing match?
Man, I wouldn't mind. I have my boy, Jeff Mayweather, Kevin Newman, the second coming. He's the main team. Andre Darrell, Dia Davis. I'm going to be working with Andre Darrell some, trying to get some sparring with him. Andre Darrell, the Matrix, he's the truth. Dia Davis is the truth. They're out here in South Florida. My goal is to get some work with them, get some rounds with them. I'm a big boxing fan, and I love boxing and pro wrestling and amateur wrestling more than MMA itself. MMA is my sport. I love doing it, but I love watching the other three more.
Wow.
Well, speaking of pro wrestling, give us your dream opponent. If you were to wrestle at WrestleMania, give us one name who you'd love to wrestle.
Man, I got a bunch of names, man.
Give us a couple of scenarios and the match stipulations as well.
Right now, I'd love to face Cesaro.
Oh, that would be good.
I wouldn't mind Bobby Roode or Austin Aries. Samoa Joe, we get a stiff style match. It'd be great. Hideo Itami, Kobayashi, I wouldn't mind facing him. And then from the old school to X-Pac, Conan, and my boy, the Great Muta. Because I wouldn't mind taking the green mist to the eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
We spoke last time about you and Great Muta, how you didn't get a chance to get his autograph last time. Have you had a chance since?
No, man, I was just too scared, man, when I saw him. I was scared, man. It's like this, when I see pro wrestlers, I get like, I freeze up. I saw Conan was in my fight. MVP, X-Pac. Scott Hall was coming out, he couldn't make it. And Conan got me on the phone. He got me on the phone with Rey Mysterio Jr., and I was like, oh my God, Rey Mysterio. We doing Skype. I could see him without his mask on. And he still looks like he's like 22 years old. And I was freezing up. I couldn't stop smiling, and I was hugging Conan. Like, the thing is, like, for me, when it comes to wrestling, I grew up watching these guys.
Yeah.
So, like, they entertain me. So, like, when I see them, I give them hugs. They're my entertainment. We talk about that when Raw. It was amazing. We talk about Monday Night Raw, and, man, I see Goldberg. Like, just these guys, if I could meet Akita Koloff and Arn Anderson, that'd be amazing, too. My head would explode. You know what I'm saying? Barry Windham. Man, I met Bobby Eaton. That was amazing. I don't know. I'm a big wrestling fan. I just grew up watching it. Back then when I was growing up, wrestling was my MMA.
Well,
that's my thing. But it was my thing to watch.
It was like that for us as well. And, when we were younger, Dennis and I, we had a lot of mark out moments as well. So when you tell us these stories, we feel a little bit better. We're glad that it happens to you as well and not just us.
Sorry, go, Cass.
I was going to ask you, next question, do you think that Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao will ever finally fight each other?
You know what? I don't know. Who knows? Because the thing is that I've heard people say at Vegas that the fight's going to happen. I don't know till it happens. I think it can, but I don't know. I really don't know. I think it will, but I think by the time it happens, they'll both be too old.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, we're trying to get Floyd Mayweather down to Australia to fight Australian Anthony Mundine. So it'll be interesting to see if that could happen.
Really? At 160? I heard that might be a possibility. I heard it'd be either him or Jermaine Taylor.
That's right. Yeah, they're really trying to get him down, and if that happens, I think all the Australians will go crazy. And finally, Mo, because we know you got to get back to it. Finally, your last question. Well, give us one of your goals for 2015. What's one of the goals that King Mo has for 2015?
I have a few of them. Have fun, keep learning, improve, all wins, no losses, and have a belt.
I think everyone can take something from that. Mo, we're excited to see you back in the cage whenever that happens. Guys, don't forget to follow him on Twitter at KingMoFH. Mo, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you back on Submission Radio, and you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, thanks. If y'all hear about Floyd versus Mundine, let me know, because that's amazing right there. I wouldn't mind seeing Floyd at 160, but here's the problem with that. He wins, he's going to have to fight Triple G or somebody, and that's not a good fight.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be on Twitter, so if we hear anything else about it, we'll let you know.
We'll keep our ear to the ground. And you have to come down and check that fight out if it happens, and then we can really discuss
definitely.
it.
Definitely.
Awesome, Mo. Thank you so much, man.
All right, bro. I'll take it easy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So there you go, guys. It's going to be very interesting to see if our very own Australian Anthony Mundine does in fact get the shot against Floyd Money Mayweather. We're going to stay tuned to that one. A big thank you to King Mo for coming on the show. But now it's time to talk about some of the big events that happened this past weekend. Just two off the top of my head is obviously Metamoris 5 and UFC Fight Night Austin. Two big events that we will be talking about, Dennis and myself. Let's talk about Metamoris. To start with, I guess one of the first things that has to be addressed is obviously Australia's own and good friend of Submission Radio, Kit Dale, was the special guest commentator. Dennis, what did you think about Metamoris as an event and of Kit Dale's commentary?
Well, Kit is not only one of the, biggest grapplers coming out of Australia, he's just, a guy with a great personality. And it was great to see him on the broadcast, not competing this time, but, being a commentator. I thought he did a great job. I'm a really big fan of his humor. And I think that there's a lot of jiu-jitsu heads out there that appreciated hearing, a bit of a different take on the commentary to, the more serious one that Kenny, and the other guys do. Yeah, I thought he did a good job. And by the way, Kit's not usually really a commentator as well. I know he's done some commentary here locally with guys like the AFC, but I think it's a good kickstart for him. I know that Kenny Florian, he's actually a broadcast student. He's got a diploma, and he studied broadcasting for quite a long time. So, no, I thought it was good. What did you think, Cass?
Yeah, I really like dry humor. That's my humor right there. And I think sometimes it was a little bit lost on Kenny Florian and Jeff Glover. I'm not sure whether they just don't get dry humor. They just don't understand. I don't know whether it's an Australian thing. I'm not too sure. But I think it was a little bit lost on them. And I think sometimes, I don't know whether Kit was getting a bit frustrated or he was giving them a little bit of shit. There was that one point when he was talking about Rory McDonald's mohawk, and he's like, that's a serious mohawk Rory's got going on there. Do you think it's going to help improve his shots? And Kenny Florian was like, you mean what, the shorts, the trunks? And Kit Dale was like, no, the mohawk. Come on, boys. I really just thought sometimes Kenny Florian and Jeff Glover, maybe they could have given Kit a little bit more, given that it was his first time commentating for Metamoris. When you're part of a commentary team, you really have to function as one unit. You gotta carry each other. You gotta help each other out. And I really thought that in terms of the broadcasting, it was a bit every man for himself. I think Jeff Glover and Kenny Florian obviously have chemistry because they've done it before together. I don't think they helped Kit Dale out at all. It was a bit sink or swim. I think Kit Dale did fine, I was checking out some of the forums and some of the opinions of what people thought. I think majority of people enjoyed it. There was a few people that were saying, Kit didn't really provide anything and this and that. I mean, look, he was talking about the great white grip and talking a bit more technical during the Renzo Gracie fight. I think a lot of the time, though, he was a bit more there for, I wouldn't say comedic relief, but just kind of like color commentary. And I think he did fine. I'd love to see Kit Dale back at Metamoris. Like they said, during the lead up to Metamoris 4, the countdown video for Kit Dale versus Gary Tonon, I believe, was the highest watched one. He's got a very funny personality, really hilarious guy. Him and his brother, I believe Scott, the Dale Bros, they've got a lot of funny videos out. And we do, in fact, have a Kit Dale interview, just another shameless plug. We interviewed Kit Dale recently, and he talks about things like leaving Australia, going to America, Metamoris, point fighters, boring guys, Steven Seagal, everything. He's got a gun in the interview. Check that out if you get a chance. But honestly, I was proud. I was really happy with Kit.
Yeah, that's right. And it's hard to do a three-person commentary team. I don't know if people recall when Randy Couture did some commentary in the UFC with Goldberg and I think Mike Goldberg and Rogan. That wasn't very good. I think that perhaps the Metamoris team thought, look, we'll throw these guys together and magic will come and happen. And I think maybe they got to get used to each other first. But yeah, like you said, Cass, he put his best foot forward, and I actually enjoyed it. And this interview that we do with him, the cheap plug continues. We throw him a going away party, so it's probably one of my favorite kind of videos that we've done. And it was cool catching up with Kid before he leaves. So make sure you guys check it out on our YouTube channel.
Absolutely, I missed that guy. In terms of the actual matches of Metamoris, the main two that we're going to be talking about is obviously Rory McDonald against JT Torres. We actually had JT Torres on the show quite a few weeks ago, it was at least a month or so ago. Really nice guy. They call him the Spider-Man. Very, very accomplished grappler. Very strong guy. We were talking to him about some of his lifts. I mean, Jesus, even just going by his squat and his bench, for a guy who weighs, I think, around about 160 pounds, he's a very, 160, 170, he's a very, very strong guy. And it was a very stiff test for Rory McDonald. I just have to say, even though JT Torres, I would say, won that fight, it was technically a draw. I think he controlled majority of it. He even took Rory McDonald down in the opening frame. There wasn't too much from Rory, although I did like his scissor leg takedowns. There was one point where JT Torres had Rory in a very compromising position. He was going for a Kimura, and it looked like it was pretty close. He didn't quite have it behind the back, but I honestly thought, given the grappling credentials of JT Torres, he was going to get it. And to hear Rory McDonald talk about it in the post-fight and say that he wasn't going to tap and it was basically going to break, I think that's incredibly ballsy. I mean, he's an MMA fighter. This is not his natural sport. He obviously trains in grappling, he trains in jiu-jitsu, but to come out here just really for no reason other than to challenge himself, Rory McDonald's not even a guy that is known for his BJJ. He's an all-rounder. It's not like a guy like Fabrizio Verdum or Vinny Magalhaes or Damian Maia. He really just came out here. So huge respect to him. And the other thing you got to consider is if he does get tapped badly, like an inverted heel hook or a Kimura that he almost got put in, that wouldn't exactly help his MMA career. So, I was very impressed. JT Torres didn't really surprise me at all. I mean, the guy's an absolute beast on the ground, but I was very impressed with Rory McDonald just to take up this challenge. What did you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I agree with you. We all think back to when Brendan Schaub, did Metamoris, and it was a bit of a disgrace because he just tried to avoid the submissions the whole time. I think Rory, he went for his own heel hook or a couple of his own heel hooks and leg locks there, and I think that's what you want to see. You want to see a guy go in there and have a real, red hot crack at, putting a submission in. And, I was impressed that JT, that he held in there and that JT didn't submit him. Obviously, it's JT's world. And, exactly agree with you, Cass. This guy is an MMA fighter. There's a lot of money, riding on his next fight. He's in a position now where, he wants the title. So holding on and not tapping to that, that could damage his body in the way he might never be the same again. So big respect for Rory McDonald in that regard, and for going in there and having a go at it, and putting on an entertainment back and forth fight. It was really interesting to see, and I think that's what people want to watch when they watch Metamoris.
Yeah, two things I just wanted to point out before we move on to the next fight. One, that it's amazing that JT Torres was outweighed by I think about 25 pounds or so, and it just goes to show even the fact that Rory McDonald's known to be quite a decent wrestler, especially for MMA wrestling. The fact that JT Torres was able to take him down so quickly and really just control him just goes to show how amazing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was. Not that it's really a surprise to anybody, but not only that, you mentioned obviously Rory McDonald's fighting for the title next after Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks fight. They're fighting in about 2 weeks, and Rory McDonald's next in line. So for him to not tap, had that Kimura gotten any worse and say gotten his arm broken, we all saw what happened to Antonio Nogueira. That would have been insane. I mean, it certainly wouldn't have helped his chances in that title fight in the welterweight division, which is notoriously an incredibly tough division. So big respect to both guys. Absolutely love watching JT Torres compete. I'd love to have him back on the show sometime soon, and big respect to Roy McDonald. But the next big fight, the main event, 14 years in the making rematch, was Renzo Gracie versus Kazushi Sakuraba. Dennis, what did you think of this one?
It was interesting. When a fight's 14 years in the making, sometimes the build-up can sort of outweigh the matchup. And, I'm not saying that it outweighed the matchup, and I'm not saying that it wasn't an entertaining back and forth match. But I suppose sometimes when it ends in a draw, you want to see a finish and you want to see a decisive winner. I think both guys put in a good, valiant effort. I think Renzo, I think he looked good. He had some really good moments, and so did Sakuraba. But I'm one of those guys that enjoys seeing a defining finish. I think it was pretty close. I can't really give anyone a huge advantage in this one. What did you think, Cass? What did you think of it?
Yeah, look, I still thought it was a fun fight. I think that the early start was a little bit slow. I believe there was a moment where Sakuraba sort of took Renzo down quite quickly, and then you had Sakuraba on top and Renzo on bottom, and Renzo was in closed guard. Sakuraba couldn't quite get out of it, and I think it was a good 7 or 8 minutes of not too much action. I totally agree with you about the whole 14 years in the making. It does give a lot of time to build hype. I think towards the end of the fight, the latter 10 minutes, things picked up, and I think it was a really fun fight. Obviously, when you take into account the fact that these guys are, they're pretty old. I mean, they're not exactly spring chickens. They're going for 20 minutes. I thought it was good. The guys were really going for it, even down to the last second. With 30 seconds left, you had Renzo trying to win the mount and Sakuraba bring his arms down for a deep single. You saw, the vaporizer utilized. I thought it was really good fun. I guess it depends what your mindset is coming in there. A lot of these Metamorises, honestly, they don't end in submissions. I was really shocked to see Josh Barnett submit Dean Lister, and right in the last few seconds. I just, honestly, I didn't really expect anyone to win in this one. I really believed that this one was going to be a draw. I thought that Renzo was going to look a lot better than he did. I just based that purely on the fact that Sakuraba's been through so many wars. I really didn't know, much like a lot of people, what kind of shape he was going to be in, how his body was going to be reacting. And the interesting thing was that you found out right after the fight that Renzo Gracie's knee, I'm not sure what exactly he meant, but he said his knee popped out. So I guess he had some issues with his knee, and that's why he was in the closed guard for the first 10 minutes. He was saying that the Sheik, his original trainer, gave him a Voltaren, and then he took that, and that was basically what made him compete. So you really got to give it up to these guys. These guys are real legends. They're living legends, and they're still competing, putting it on. And not only that, but obviously Renzo Gracie saying that he wants 2 more MMA fights. Kenny Florian seemed pretty surprised by that. I don't know whether Kenny Florian doesn't listen to our show, but it's kind of old news now. Kenny, Renzo Gracie was on our show last week, and he already said he wants to go back to the UFC, and he wants 2 top 10 lightweight fights. So that's going to be very interesting, and obviously he's got Matt Hughes later on 2015. So all in all, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun event. Obviously Gary Tonin had, I think, one of the only other submissions in the event. Very impressive reverse heel hook. Jake Shields was the secret match. All in all, I think it was a pretty fun Metamoris.
Yeah, that's right. Good Metamoris. Interesting to see what happens with Renzo from here. And, hopefully that knee stays in there and intact so we can see him in those 2 MMA fights.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other big event that we want to talk about is obviously UFC Fight Night 57 in Austin. A lot of fights here to talk about. Just opening up the card, you had Doo Ho Choi defeating Juan Manuel Pung. I hope I'm saying that name right. TKO punches, very, very quick. 1 punch is all it took. Then you had the women's strawweight, Paige Van Zandt, making her UFC debut. The story with Paige is obviously that she was meant to be in the Ultimate Fighter originally, but due to her age, she's 20 years old, and obviously there's going to be alcohol in the house. Unfortunately, she could not attend. So she basically is making her UFC debut a little bit earlier than the other girls who are, still basically in the Ultimate Fighter, even though it was pre-taped. She defeated Kaylin Curran TKO punches in the third round, and this was a fantastic fight. It earned the Fight of the Night honors. Just the aggression of Paige, really, really entertaining, really, really great fight. She was going for that finish. She had Kaylin really badly hurt in the first round, couldn't put her away. Second round was much more of the same, very dominant performance by Paige, and then in the third round finally put her away. I'm just going to say exactly what women's MMA needs, and just MMA in general. People going for the finish, putting on exciting fights. Another good step forward in the women's strawweight division. And just quickly through the prelim cards, you had Ariola defeating Eve Edwards. First round submission, rocked him really badly and submitted him with an armbar. It's not good for Eve Edwards, because I believe this will be the last time we see Eve in the UFC, quite possibly in the sport. That's 5 losses in a row. So unfortunately the bad luck continues, but congratulations to Ariola. A few other quick notes on the prelim cards. You had James Vick defeating Nick Hine. Pretty back and forth fight, except the first round where James Vick got dropped twice. For some reason, a judge gave it to him 30-27 all 3 rounds. I don't know what that dude was doing. Roger Narvaez against Luke Barnett. Another disappointing loss for Luke Barnett, and he was visibly upset after that decision was read out. Roger obviously coming down from light heavyweight. Last fight against obviously Pat Cummins. Good win for the guy in his home state. And then you had the Russian Ruslan Magomedov against Josh Copeland, against, they call him the Cuddly Bear. Pretty decent performance from Magomedov, and we'll see what he can do in the heavyweight division. Now, onto the main card, Dennis. I'll let you kick this one off. What did you think?
Yeah, you know, we had Matt Wyman versus Isaac Valle Flag. Did I get that name right, Cass? I'm not sure. I'm not the best with names. Now, with Isaac, he had a very interesting photo going into that one. He looked quite surprised. Usually guys try and make a intimidating face, unless we're talking about Cody McKenzie, who looks like a count from the Count of Monte Cristo in a lot of his photos. But, you know, the fight really showed off Matt's grappling. You know, he really had Isaac in a lot of, you know, really dominant positions on the ground. Isaac clinched up with Matt quite a bit. You know, it was a pretty close fight, but, you know, Matt really notched it out with, you know, having dominant positions, having Isaac's back in a lot of parts of the fight, and, you know, walking away with a win there. Now, Cass, you know, we were talking about that both of the guys, you know, sort of at the end of the fight looked like they had a few words said, but it looks like they made up by the end of it all.
Yeah, there was a strange situation afterwards. I'm not quite sure what happened, but basically Matt Wyman, I believe, had Isaac's back. He had the wrist control, and then the fight ended. The ref sort of waved it off. The third round had finished, and they just kind of stayed in the same position. Now, I want to say that Matt Wyman was the one with the dominant position. However, I could be wrong. I'm not sure whether Isaac had grips or something like that. But they just basically stayed in the same position for, I don't know, seemed like eternity. And then eventually they both separated at the same time. Matt Wyman gave him a bit of a push. They stood up. They were face to face. They were, you know, saying things. Matt Wyman had his hands on his ears, like, you know, I can't hear you, say something. Bit of a strange situation. I'd love to find out more about it and what exactly happened. But by the end, you know, after the fight, officially ended and everything, they both apologized to each other and made up. Hugs and kisses all the way, so it's good to see things ending on a good note. Now, in the flyweight division, I think this is another contender for possible fight of the night. You had Joseph Benavidez, who was on our show a couple of months ago, against Dustin Ortiz. Now, Dennis, I'd like to get your thoughts. What do you think of this fight?
You know, Joseph Benavidez was on our show about a month ago, or just over a month ago, and really spoke about this fight. I think Joseph's, you know, it's very clear he's trying to get another title shot. He's trying to put on a dominant performance. When he came out in the first round, he put together some amazing combinations. His striking is looking better and better and better. You know, Dustin, he's a tough guy, and as the fight went on, Dustin took some really, really serious punches. Now, there were in a couple of scrambles, and, you know, Joseph really showed off his grappling, really reversing a lot of the positions, coming out on top. You know, Dustin was no slouch there. He took a lot of punches to the face, a lot of punches. And, you know, he was moving around. He was doing his thing. And, you know, he had some great exchanges himself. I think it showed that Dustin Ortiz, you know, he's a talent that can really improve in the division. I don't think he loses too much steam. And it shows that Joseph Benavidez is just improving in every facet. You know, the guy is just an amazing fighter. And it's just a shame that he lost twice to Demetrius Johnson. I'm not sure if this will get him a title shot. It wasn't a finish, but it was a very decisive performance. What did you think, Cass?
Yeah, in terms of title shots, Joseph Benavidez is definitely in that Junior Dos Santos territory where, you know, he's going to have to win a lot of fights and have really, not even necessarily what's the word? Impressive performances. He really needs to do something. And, I think Demetrius Johnson really needs to verse everybody in that division before he may get another title shot. I guess it's a good thing that the flyweight division isn't really all that stacked. I believe the next winner of the title shot will probably be either John Lineker or Ian McCall. We'll see if that fight ends up happening. Obviously, Ian McCall had to pull out due to a blood infection recently. But yeah, no, going back to Joseph Benavidez versus Dustin Ortiz, man, I really like this fight, really thoroughly enjoyed it. I think when people talk about the flyweights and how they may not necessarily enjoy those fights, I think this is a perfect example. If you're going to show anybody a good fun fight from the flyweight division, show them this fight. It was a great one, and I really like that Dustin Ortiz kept coming forward. He took a lot of shots. He got outstruck, but I don't think he looked like shit in the process. I thought he looked really good, and he looked like the kind of guy where I'm not sure if he would necessarily beat Joseph Benavidez in the future, but he looked like he showed a lot of promise. He looked like the kind of guy who will go back to the drawing board. I mean, he was coming in on a 2-fight win streak to Justin Scoggins and Ray Borg. I think he's going to go back up, pick himself up, put things back together, and I can't express just how much I love this fight. I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and anytime I can watch Joseph Benavidez fight, I always enjoyed, because the guy's just, I don't know, a really interesting guy to watch. Like, he's such a great athlete, and he can do so many crazy things. I guess a lot of the guys from Team Alpha Male can. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's one of my favorite flyweight fights of the year, and I think it's really great when these kinds of fights happen, because it gets more interest in the division, and I think there is a bit more interest in the lighter divisions now. So I think there is a bit of steam building there. So it's good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is Dustin Ortiz, he dropped Joseph Benavidez a couple of times in that fight. So even though Joseph clearly won, I think there were definitely parts where Dustin made it competitive. So it wasn't a complete blowout. Sometimes there's fights where it's just frustrating. We see a guy that's so dominant and just completely nullifies his opponent but doesn't finish, and it's 3 rounds of domination, but you almost get a little bit bored where you're like, man, just either finish the guy or move on. But in this case, Dustin was never out of the fight. He always had that puncher's chance. Really thoroughly loved that fight. Moving up next in the heavyweight division, you had Alexei Oleinik against Jared Rosholt. Now, I'm just going to say this fight did not go at all the way I thought. Jared Rosholt came in. I was listening to the commentators, and they were saying how Jared Rosholt was injured in his past fights. Obviously, he beat Saul Palele recently, and he's kind of pulling what John Madsen, another wrestler, pulled a few years ago, where he was notching wins, developing a win streak, but in maybe not the most impressive fashion, and just slowly but surely working his way to a title shot. Now, enter Jared Rosholt that came in today. He looked really in shape. He looked like he lost a lot of body fat, and I really thought, wow, here's a guy, if he can show off some striking, some KO power, he could possibly be a threat in the heavyweight division. Dennis, I'll let you explain what exactly happened in this fight.
Well, a fellow Ukrainian, Oleinik, he came in, he's 37 years old, and guys, not a lot of guys really know him. He only fought in the UFC once before that, but he was coming in on an amazing 11-fight win streak, I believe, Cass. Is that right? Let me count it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, that makes it an 11-fight win streak now. So, he came in and he didn't look very impressive. He came right in there. He was trying to stay close, and Rosholt was just rattling off these punches. And man, I thought it was going to be over at any second. I couldn't believe that he hung in there. And then our boy, well, not really our boy, but this underdog, 37 years old, only fought in the UFC once, and really this was a fight where I thought Rosholt was going to go right through him. Lands an amazing combination, knocks Rosholt out, and I mean, doesn't just knock him out, as in he's lying on the ground, gets back up and says, "Ref, why'd you stop it?" The guy is just, on Queer Street, doesn't know where he's at. His Google Maps are broken, and he doesn't know which turn to take. So it was an amazing win. In typical Ukrainian fashion, I can say it because I'm Ukrainian myself. Alexei doing the bow, very modest, kind of like a Terminator, you might say. So it was a very impressive come from behind victory. What did you think of it, Cass?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I really didn't expect that to happen. I thought, if anything, Jared Rosholt, and I mean, he looked really impressive early on. He hit him with some big shots. He got him in that headlock. He was buying a bit of time. Jared Rosholt resetting a little bit. I thought, wow, this is a guy that's fighting smart, a lot more impressive, and I guess entertaining than his past fights, really willing to stand and bang. And the fact that he got knocked out, I mean, one thing you got to take away from it is the fact that Jared Rosholt's probably not going to be as eager to stand and bang in the future, and that might not be good in the next few fights because he may be extra conservative. And I'm not sure how exciting his next few fights are going to be. But, man, you say Oleinik, he's not our boy officially, but he kind of reminds me almost of like an Anthony Perosh, like a Ukrainian Anthony Perosh. It came out of nowhere. No one's necessarily expecting him to capture a title, but he keeps winning and winning and winning. And, he don't forget, Oleinik, he holds victories and wins over guys like Tony Lopez, Jeff Monson, Dion Starring, and Krokop. So, he's got a nice few decent names in that 11-fight win streak, and I was thoroughly impressed. I'm very curious to see who they match him up with in the future. I think maybe a guy like the Black Beast. It's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah, and just here's a really fun fact for everybody out there who doesn't know Oleinik, which they wouldn't because he's not the most popular fighter over there in the US or around the world. The guy actually fought at middleweight at one point, and one of the guys that he fought was Chael Sonnen, who he lost to at Bo Dogfight in 2005. So how about that? The guy used to fight in middleweight, went up to light heavyweight, now he's in heavyweight.
That's crazy. Wow.
Isn't that crazy? It's just unbelievable how these things happen. I mean, he's been in the game for a ridiculous amount of time. His first fight was in 1997, and it was in Moscow, Russia. So it's probably against a bear. So there you go. The guy looks a little bit unfazed, I think, being in the limelight. Like you said, he's got big wins over like Krokop and stuff like that. And this is his second win in the UFC. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Obviously, he doesn't look like he's a world beater just yet. But if he comes in with a little bit of a different game plan next time, who knows? Maybe he can pick up another win. That would be really interesting to see.
And I'm just going to say this. It always warms my heart to see guys that have been fighting for so long. Like this guy obviously been fighting since 1997, and only now he's just gotten into the UFC. I mean, that's tough. That's almost 20 years. That's like 16, 17 years right there of doing something. Obviously, in 97, there was probably absolutely no money in the sport whatsoever. I can't imagine how he got into it. I mean, being Russian-Ukrainian, it doesn't surprise at all. But now to see him in the UFC, getting a Performance of the Night bonus, I'm pretty sure those worth $50,000, depending on how Dana's feeling. I mean, that's huge for the guy. He seems like a very modest guy. I'm really happy. It's kind of like the cast of Modern Family. A lot of those guys were actors before, didn't have anything on the horizon, and now I'm pretty sure they're all filthy rich millionaires. So really happy to see guys like that, make it big after so long of not making it.
Yeah, that's right. You can buy a small village in the Ukraine now. Congratulations, Lexi.
In the flyweight division, you had Chico Camus against Brad Pickett. Now, this is another tough outing for Brad Pickett. I feel kind of bad for this guy because obviously he was competitive in the bantamweight division, and he decided that he may not win the title there, so he was going to drop down to the flyweight division, obviously holding a win over the champ Demetrius Johnson, and it's been a pretty rocky road for him. Even in his debut against Neil Seery, I think that was a really close fight that, he almost didn't necessarily win. Then he lost to Ian McCall, and now he lost to Chico Camus. This is a really close fight. What did you think, Dennis?
Yeah, it's a bit tough for him because old Brad Pickett, he beat Demetrius Johnson in 2010, and sort of did look at one point like one of the big guys coming up, and like you mentioned, couple of losses back to back here and decision losses. He had that win, like you mentioned, against Neil, but the thing with him is he always puts on such an exciting fight. I mean, it was a great fight to watch. It was back and forth. It was very, very close. Chico just looked like he had more energy. He just looked more energized in there. He just threw some crazy stuff. I don't know if Brad was expecting it or not, but Chico looked like he was like the Energizer bunny. If Energizer are looking to sponsor anyone, they might want to sponsor that guy because he looked very energized. It was a very, very close fight. I thought it was very exciting. Brad's one of those guys that he won't be going anywhere unless he gets, really beaten decisively in his next fight. I think he's still got an opportunity to really get back on track because his fights are so exciting. And the UFC loves to have him around because he brings, eyeballs to the division. But, then again, maybe Brad needs to look at his game plan and see why is he losing? Is there anything he can do in modifying his game to sort of get that little bit extra to win those decisions. He has lost two decisions in a row. So I'm not sure. What did you think, Cass?
Yeah, well, obviously Brad Pickett, primarily a striker. I like to see the evolution in his wrestling. It's definitely come a long way since the early days. And I think you're right. I don't think the UFC is going to get rid of him anytime soon. Obviously, because the flyweight division, it's still in that building process. And obviously, him being British, the UFC love to basically have anyone from the UK to really sort of, plant seeds and build any kind of superstars. I think that's another big reason why Dan Hardy is there and why he'll probably always be in the UFC. But yeah, it's a tough one. And obviously Brad Pickett, he cuts a lot of weight. He was talking about how incredibly tough it was for him to cut to flyweight. I don't know whether he's fully adjusted to that weight cut. I don't know if he's nailed it, but that could be one of the reasons why he was so tired and why he maybe, looked like he didn't quite have all the energy. It's really tough. He's kind of, he might be in one of those Rich Franklin sort of positions where not quite a light heavyweight, not quite a middleweight. In this case, maybe not quite a flyweight, not quite a bantamweight. But he definitely needs to go back to the drawing board and reassess a few things, if he wants to continue not only winning but obviously long-term goal, get that title belt. And at the moment, obviously having Demetrius Johnson at as the champion and being as good as he is, and the fact that he's improved so much, whereas Brad Pickett I think has definitely improved but maybe not quite as much, it's definitely going to be a tough one for Brad Pickett. So he needs to have a bit more of a look at his career and find out what are the reasons for those losses.
Yeah, that's right. Following that fight, Edson Barboza took on Bobby Green. With this fight, it was a very, very exciting fight. Cass, when you first thought these two guys were going to fight each other, just the first feeling, the first thought in your head, who did you think was going to have an advantage in this one?
For some reason, I went with Bobby Green. He's a guy that I think has been under the radar for a long time. He beat Josh Thompson. I just thought that given his striking and his wrestling, I thought he had more tools. Edson Barboza, however, is one of those guys where when he's on, he's on. I mean, he was beating Donald's Cowboy Cerrone, who was notoriously a slow striker. I think he dropped Cerrone. I'm not 100% sure, but he definitely was being dominant in that fight until he obviously got knocked out. He's had a slightly suspect chin at times. I thought this is definitely going to be a fight of the night performance if Bobby Green brought it, which is one thing that, even though he beat Josh Thompson in his last fight, I thought there was a bit too much talking for my taste. In this fight, there was a lot of talking. It was almost like a debating contest from Bobby Green. Before we get into it, Dennis, what did you think? What were your opening thoughts?
Yeah, I actually thought Edson was going to just pick him apart because the deal with Bobby is I think he's very good with the mental tenacity of talking throughout his fights, but he's very he sort of just stands in front of people, and I thought that Edson was going to take advantage of that, but then who knows, exactly what you said, the suspect chin is always something that can't be trusted. But going into the fight, Cass, like you mentioned, talking galore. Bobby Green was talking his head off, sometimes more than actually striking or doing anything else. Edson Barboza, of course, said, because he doesn't understand English very well, that Bobby will have to speak clearly and slowly if he wants him to understand the trash talk, and I think Bobby tried to do his best in getting it across to Edson. At times, though, I thought Bobby looked really good throughout the fight. He had some moments there. I thought that Edson looked a little bit tired in some parts of the fight, and Bobby really came forward, landed some good punches, but then in my head, I was thinking, don't stop, keep going, keep putting it together, stop talking, move around more. I mean, Bobby had a good strategy for avoiding the leg kicks. He stood forward with both legs forward, but at the same time, he wasn't moving around very well. His hands were all the way down. Edson wasn't going to shoot in on a takedown and try and take him down on the ground. So I thought if he had his hands up a bit more and sort of moved his head a bit more, he might have been able to edge this one out. Obviously, Edson Barboza, an amazing striker. I love watching him strike because he's not like anyone else. They mentioned that he was running out of sparring partners because he was injuring everyone. I absolutely believe it. The guy's an absolute machine. And when he threw that spinning back kick or wherever it was and knocked Bobby Green down, I jumped off my seat. I couldn't believe it. But at the same time, I think Bobby Green, he looked pretty good as well. I just felt like there was too much talking not enough strikes being thrown. Cass, what did you think?
Yeah, well, you're right. Edson Barboza, he's a guy that a lot of people were talking about being, possibly the next champion at one point until he ran into Jamie Varner. But until then, he was on a 10-fight win streak, undefeated, and coming off a massive spinning wheel kick KO over Terry Edom. So he's a guy that's kind of, putting the pieces back together. And he had another 3-fight win streak going until he fought Donald Cerrone. Since then, he's beat Evan Dunham, and then tonight he beat Bobby Green. I just think Bobby Green looked really, really flat. He definitely had his moments towards the end of the fight. And I think Edson Barboza, he's another guy where you can test his cardio because he's a pretty big guy. He's a pretty big guy for the division. He looks like he's got a lot of muscle on him. His physique is almost like GSP, but a little bit more narrow and skinnier. And I think that's something that guys can, take advantage of and maybe pressure him a little bit. But yeah, Bobby Green, just so flat, so much talking. And I mean, talking is great. I think a lot of people misunderstand the talking. I think for him, it's almost like a tactic, like Anderson Silva dancing around. It's not just taunting. It's part of his actual game plan. He's doing it for a very specific reason. I think same as Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz. They may seem crazy, but I think it's all for a reason. It's all mental games. As everybody knows, the mental side is such a big part of fighting. So I think with Bobby Green, he does it for a reason. I just don't think he capitalized on this case, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, Even with Nick Diaz, we saw against Carlos Condit, he was having absolutely none of it. He was too focused. And I think a combination of Edson Barboza just being really on, really focused, and not understanding the language, all those things basically threw that game plan out of the window. And more than anything, I was just a little bit disappointed by Bobby Green. And I'm very curious what his mental state is at the moment, because I think about a week ago or a few days ago, he was saying that he might retire from MMA. He's obviously had a few tragedies in his life. Both his brothers were killed, one due to gang-related shootings, and the other one, I believe, was a shooting, but not necessarily gang-related. So I could certainly understand why this guy would have a lot on his mind. I'm not too sure where his mind is at the moment. I'm not 100% sure if it is completely with fighting. But if that's the case, if he was a little bit distracted, I know, hypothetically, if I was a fighter, there's no way I'd be able to, concentrate with things like that happening in my life. We saw it with Jake Shields when his dad passed away, and obviously he had that brutal loss against Jake Ellenberger. So we'll see. The big question is, how is Bobby Green going to bounce back, and is he even going to continue fighting in the sport of MMA?
Yeah, that's right. Apparently, there's a hit out for him, so who knows what's going on there. But, the other thing I wanted to say about Edson Barboza was, how about some of those leg kicks that he threw? Especially there was one near the end of the fight there. Bobby Green couldn't keep his poker face on for that one. You heard a definite groan as soon as Barboza landed that kick. But, again, for Barboza, like you said, he looked like he gassed a little bit. He left moments for Bobby Green to really capitalize. And the other thing about him is that chin, just never know with that chin what the deal is. I thought Edson had some good footwork. He moved around a lot. A lot of people would say that he ran a little bit, but he also backed it up with strikes every time he stopped. He did move around a lot. It was an interesting game plan. It made sense, but yeah, overall, it was a really interesting fight. Interesting to see what Bobby Green does from here. Hopefully, he doesn't retire, because like you said, Cass, he's a really interesting guy to watch.
Yeah, look, just on that game plan, look, I fully agree. I think Edson Barboza fought very smart, and he obviously couldn't do what Bobby Green did to him, which was stand right in front of him. And that spinning wheel kick was insane. I would love to hear what Joe Rogan thought of that. Remember last time when he knocked out Terry Edom, Joe Rogan went absolutely insane and timed it pretty much perfectly of when he threw the kick, and Joe Rogan was talking about a knockout. And in this case, it was Bobby Green basically saying, "I'm not hurt, give it to me." And he not only did he throw the wheel kick, he landed it and knocked Bobby Green down. It was insane. It was poetry in motion. But next fight, the main event, featherweight, Frankie Edgar versus Cub Swanson. This was a huge fight. I was extremely pumped for this one. Obviously, it had big title implications. Whoever was winning was getting the next shot at Jose Aldo. It was either going to be a rematch against Frankie Edgar or the guy who was coming in on a 6-fight win streak and very deserving, Cub Swanson. Dennis, what did you think of this fight?
Wrestling changed the outcome of the fight. Frankie Edgar just had really strong wrestling, and I think as the fight went on, Cub Swanson realized that, oh crap, I'm in here with a really, really good wrestler and I can't stop him from taking me down. As soon as he realized that, I think, his mental state changed. He became defensive, didn't want to get back on the ground, and forgot about being offensive because he's being defensive. He's trying to stop Frankie Edgar. Just really impressed with Frankie Edgar. I think he's a little bit underrated. I think people have forgotten how good he is, and I think he's one of those guys that just trains like an animal, focuses on what he has to do. He doesn't really speak that much, but people are forgetting that this guy was a great champion, at lightweight, and he's had some really good wins. Just really impressed with, what he looked like. I think that in a title fight against Jose, I think he has a good chance of beating him, actually. The first fight was very, very close. I think he could go in there and take it. Just very happy for Frankie Edgar and a little bit disappointed for Cub Swanson, who waited for so long to try and get a title shot, waiting around. And now, he takes the loss. He's not gone out of division. There's a lot of fun fights for him, actually. Who knows? There's the Conor McGregors floating around, there's the Chad Mendeses, there's a whole bunch of guys in the division. And, the good thing about Conor McGregor is he's brought a lot of interest to the division. So I think a lot of people sort of really care about all the fighters in there now, but it was a tough situation for Cub, and really, really impressed with Frankie Edgar. I think Frankie will go down as one of those fighters that really goes in there ready to go, even though he's had a whole bunch of losses on his record against Jose Aldo and Benson Henderson. He's really bounced back, and he's looking really impressive. What did you think, Cass?
Well, I'm struggling to comprehend the fact that at one point Frankie Edgar lost 3 fights in a row. Obviously 2 to Ben Henderson and then once to Jose Aldo. But since then, he's beaten Charles Oliveira, another tough featherweight, BJ Penn, obviously a legend in the sport, and now Cub Swanson. So, this is a very important fight for Frankie Edgar. Obviously, BJ Penn, he's a legend in the sport, but coming in the way he did in his last fight, it didn't necessarily prove much. So here he is stepping in against a guy like Cub Swanson, 6-fight win streak, a lot of momentum on his side, and he absolutely crushed him. He absolutely dismantled him. Cub Swanson before the fight was talking about speed and how Frankie Edgar had that speed advantage in lightweight and how he had that cardio advantage, and how at featherweight he won't have that, especially against him. And obviously Cub Swanson with his knockout power. And I'd say that Frankie Edgar broke Cub Swanson in that fight. I think he took away his will. I think even though Cub Swanson was constantly fighting back, I think there was definitely thoughts in his mind at a lot of points in that fight where he was just like, man, I'm on my back. I'm having the shit beaten out of me. I'm bleeding everywhere. And no doubt the Cub Swanson's a warrior, but I really thought the Frankie Edgar took the will away from him. And I saw a few people, talking on the internet, on the forums, about... There was a few comparisons between Frankie Edgar and GSP, a lot of them complimentary, others saying about wrestlers and, wrestlers being boring and how it ruins the sport and things like that. I couldn't disagree more with that. I thought this is a really impressive performance. I mean, he was constantly raining down with ground and pound. Really, really, really powerful, good-looking ground and pound, may I add. And Frankie Edgar, he's never really been a guy that's been necessarily known for his power. He's not a one-punch knockout artist, but I thought he looked extremely dangerous, like a threat to anybody in the division. And we'll see how he goes against Jose Aldo. I'm very curious to see how that happens. A lot of criticism on Jose Aldo for the later rounds in his fights. I think that he looked very, very impressive against Chad Mendes. I guess there's similarities between Chad Mendes and Frankie Edgar in terms of, wrestlers with striking. A lot of differences as well. I'll be very, very interested to see how that fight plays out. If he doesn't win, then I think he might be another guy that's sort of stuck in that Junior Dos Santos territory where he beats almost every single other person in the division, with the exception of Jose Aldo. But man, I think, and you know what, another thing, that post-fight speech where he got on the mic, he just told everybody how it is, that he's still improving. That's exactly what post-fight speeches are meant to be. A lot of emotion, none of this, cool, I'm happy, I'll fight whoever the UFC puts in front of me. Absolutely not. It's one of the worst things for your career. If you're a fighter listening out there, I may not know anything about fighting, but in terms of entertainment, fans and the UFC brass don't want to hear things like that. Just honestly, all in all, could not be more impressed with Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, that's right. And like I said, he's a guy that doesn't get as much respect as he really should. He's done a lot in the sport. He's fought some tough guys. Just looking through his record, Tyson Griffin. He's fought Gray Maynard and beat him.
Sean
Shirk, that's right. BJ Penn. And I mean, he fought BJ, really when BJ was more in his prime. Even guys like Mark Bocek, Jim Miller.
Yeah.
He's been right there, and the thing about him is he's absolutely right. The guy is improving. Every time I see him, I go, he's looking a lot better. He's finishing guys now. This is his second finish. A lot of people, including me at one point, were criticizing him because he was going to decision with a lot of guys. He's finished two guys. He's gone to a lighter weight class, which takes a lot of guts for a guy that's dominated, such an accomplished champion in lightweight. He's gone down a weight class, obviously on the tough diet, cutting all that weight. So he's a determined guy, and he's only 33 years old. I think he's got a good shot here against Jose, and if he wins this title, this will be a great story. He might go down, as one of those guys that just has one of the best stories in the UFC and just one of the hardest working guys in the UFC. He's a really, really cool guy. He's a great guy, just a hardworking dude from New Jersey. And yeah, it was very good to see him get the win.
Not only that, but people always talk about Frankie Edgar and the heart he has to continue fighting. People talk about that mainly for those fights he had against Gray Maynard, where he was really badly injured in the first round. He came back and obviously fought the rest of the fight. But in this case, he proved another thing. Not only does he have the heart to continue fighting if he's hurt, but he's got the heart to finish the fight. And that's another thing that can be really tough. I mean, if you're in there for, say, whether it's 3 rounds or 5 rounds, if you're really dominating a guy, a lot of fighters may be tempted to cruise through those last, few rounds or last minute. We saw it. We saw it in this card as well. I think there was at least 2 or 3 guys or 2 or 3 fights which ended, with the guy in the last few seconds, stalling a little bit. Edson Barboza taking nothing away from him whatsoever. But you could see, he was stalling a little bit in the last only 10 seconds, and Bobby Green was making gestures as in, you're running away from me. Frankie Edgar, in the last few seconds, he had that in the bag, and to go for the finish like that, I mean, that's so admirable. That's exactly what people want to see. He really is the epitome of a fighter. You can knock him down, he'll come back. He can be dominating for 5 straight rounds, clearly winning the fight, and he'll still go for the finish. Just absolutely impressive performance and very worthy of performance of the night, and obviously broke a record, the latest finish in UFC fight history. I believe there was 4 seconds left. How can you not love that?
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing, if I'm the UFC right now, I'm loving it because so much attention in the featherweight division, so many stars right now in the division, so much name value. And you will have Frankie Edgar fighting for the title. Who's not going to want to see him, fight Jose Aldo again? And if he beats Jose Aldo, all the fun matchups he could put together for Frankie, he'd probably be a champion there for quite a while. And just, even putting him up against a Chad Mendes one day in the future, Conor McGregor is obviously someone that talks a lot. Just so many matchups for him. So, yeah, I think it's really good. The featherweight division is definitely the most interesting that it's been in a really long time, and it's really exciting right now for MMA fans.
Yeah, and just in terms of promotion from the UFC standpoint, Frankie Edgar makes it easy. He's got such a good story behind him, and if he, for example, won this fight and it was a razor-close, thin decision, you could always play it off as, he beat a guy who was really tough, and he beat a guy who was on a 6-fight win streak. But the way he took a guy like Cub Swanson with so much momentum, absolutely demolished him and finished him. And in the way that he finished him, I mean, that's a really easy sell. And the fact that the first Jose Aldo fight, it was a reasonably close fight as well. I think the UFC in a very lucky position, because you do have some fights where fighters get title shots and it's a little bit of a hard sell. Like, in the flyweight division, for example, Ian McCall or John Lineker are really going to have to put in a good performance to get people excited for that fight. But I think here, Frankie Edgar, he's really put in, I guess, the hard work so the UFC doesn't necessarily have to. But I think, to be honest, that's pretty much a wrap. That's another show in the bag from us. Massive thank you to all our guests this week: King Mo, Ricardo Lamas, and of course the one and only Urijah Faber. I believe that was his third time. That was his third time back on the show. King Mo and Ricardo Lamas both making their second appearances on Submission Radio. So I'm loving this Submission Radio family that's constantly growing. I'm loving these guests, and we'll certainly be back with, next week with more guests. Isn't that right, Dennis?
Yeah, that's right, guys. And, if you're listening to this and you're listening to on YouTube, give us your thoughts. Who should Cub Swanson fight next? He's in an interesting position. Do you think that Conor McGregor should fight him if he beats Dennis Siver? It might make sense. Cub Swanson isn't really a traditional wrestler. So is Cub Swanson Conor McGregor's path to a potential title shot without, having too much risk, fighting a guy like a Chad Mendes or something like that. So, or a Ricardo Lamas, who's a superstar. So let us know your thoughts. And Cass, yeah, absolutely happy to see guys returning for a third time to the show. We must be doing something right.
Must be doing something right. Next week, I believe we're going to be bringing back another segment that we used to do, and we really enjoyed it. It was basically fan segments. So you guys email us in at info@submissionradioaustralia.com. Let us know what topics you would like us to talk about, or you can hit us up on Twitter at submissionaus, or of course our Facebook, Submission Radio AU. We're pretty much all over the internet. We're like a virus. We're like Ebola. It can be found pretty easily. So let us know what topics you would like us to talk about, and we will talk about them, and we will credit you for bringing up that topic. Till then, guys, don't forget to like the video if you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Kit Dale interview. Check that out on our YouTube channel. I will see you back next week.